Hi, I'm Lucy Tozen Bolton and I'm Senior Editor at Baby Centre UK. Today I'm joined by Annie Belasco, who is head of the charity Pandas, which supports families in pre or postnatal depression. Hi Annie, thanks for joining me. Tell me a bit about Pandas.
Hi, thanks for having me on. So we're, as you say, we're Pandas Foundation, and we support every parent, carer or network who may be struggling with their perinatal mental health. So what we mean by perinatal is the mental health throughout the period of conception through to birth and beyond. We've seen significant rises in our calls to our helpline throughout COVID and beyond, and the needs of the charity are very much widening due to the struggles that so many parents are facing, in addition to perinatal mental illness.
Thanks, Annie. And Annie's agreed to answer some questions today from our Baby Centre community. Maternal mental health is a subject that's discussed a lot in the community regarding pregnancy, birth or postnatally. So there's lots of questions we could answer today. We'll crack straight into it, Annie, if you're happy to. Our first question is around pregnancy anxiety. And the person has said, my baby isn't here yet, but I've had a very stressful and emotional pregnancy. I'm really struggling with panic attacks and anxiety. Any advice?
Okay, so first of all, I'm really sorry that you're going through this. I went through this at prenatal stage, and I think that anxiety and panic can feel really intense, especially when you're pregnant. There's lots of views around how you're lucky to be pregnant, how you should be enjoying it and planning for the arrival of your new baby. But it can actually be a really stressful time, not knowing if your expectations will be fulfilled. And it can feel really intense. And often the anxiety is telling us that we're under threat, we should be worried, we should be prepared. And we kind of go into that fight or flight mode. I think with this scenario, what would be really helpful to understand is when this anxiety and this panic starts, can we note what is triggering this? Where are you? What are you doing? What are you thinking about? What have you been through? What are you hoping for? And really try to get down to that root cause. Because if you can acknowledge and understand there and then, this is triggering me and this is making me feel like this, we then know there's something we can do about that. And I think it's really important. I know that when I suffered with terrible anxiety and panic during my pregnancy, I was advised by my doctor to, if I could, and it was safe and it was realistic, to change that environment straight away. So if I was inside, awake, panicking about the day ahead or panicking about appointments or panicking just about the thoughts going through my head, I would get out of bed quicker. I would leave the house. And if it was in a different situation, I would be outside. I would change that environment, change what I was doing to change that thought process, which usually does help. With prenatal anxiety and panicking, talking therapies can be amazing. We talk a lot about journals, and I think that they can be helpful for people that benefits, but a lot of the time talking to someone who isn't in your immediate support network, who potentially is going to say it's going to be okay, that may not be enough for that person. So you can self-refer for talking therapies via the NHS, and I think that those three key things of acknowledgement of what is triggering that anxiety and panic, you may not know, and that is also okay. Changing the environment or the situation that you're in, and also then seeking further support through talking.
Annie, that's great. Thank you. There's so many good suggestions there. Thank you. Our next question is relating to birth trauma, which sadly some people experience. They haven't had the birth that they wanted or they planned. This mum has said she'd had a pretty traumatic birth, which she's still trying to process, but finding that her mind just keeps going over and over what happened. And she's finding that just completely exhausting and draining. Have you got any suggestions for that?
Birth trauma, I'm so sorry that she has gone through this. And again, I think that over the past 2 years, there's been so many changes around the word kind of planning. We plan for this birth and we plan to raise a child in a certain way, and sometimes things just don't work out the way that we have planned, and that meeting the expectation can often leave us feeling quite low and traumatized. There's also PTSD, which is associated with birth trauma as well, where you have flashbacks, dark thoughts and memories of experiences that you've had. So I'm so sorry that this mother is going through this. I think for this, birth trauma is a serious subject, but it's absolutely possible to recover from this. That's really important to note. Reflection and acceptance of what that mother has been through, for her to process it. We would never encourage someone to not talk about it or to kind of brush it out the way. We want them to acknowledge and accept what has happened, but also that mother is completely entitled to her experience, her voice, and to be heard. If she feels something, if she's lacking in understanding of why she has got to this point in her from her birth experience, and if she felt that things weren't done in the way that she had hoped, or there were things that she would like to question, most hospitals do offer a debriefing service, so she's well within her rights to go back to that hospital and to ask for a conversation around what happened and why. If it's more of an emotional support that she needs, we would very much encourage her to contact a charity such as the Birth Trauma Association. They're a fantastic charity that have a huge amount of resources and signposting going forward. But it will take time, but recovery is possible within that. And it's really important for the mother to be allowed to have that voice, because talking about it will help her become at peace with what she's been through.
Thanks, Annie. I mean, that was one thing that I was thinking, is it worth, asking to see your birth notes or going back and talking to the midwife or even doctors from your birth? Do you think that can be helpful?
I think it can, if you're in the right place. Sometimes we look at medical notes, and I know that I did this, and I was really confused about the terminology and the language and what does this mean and what does that mean. So I think if you do want or need that information, it's very important to have that with support from a healthcare professional. So a midwife, the GP that you're under, or the person that delivered your baby and the team around them, so that you can have a conversation teamed up with your notes so that it can be explained. And sometimes it's a very good point that the mother may have been not understanding what's been going on due to her experience, which is inevitably ended up quite traumatic. So that conversation could be really helpful and become a key part of the process of her recovery.
Our next question is all around bonding, which I think is such a huge topic when you become a parent. When you're pregnant, you just assume that you're going to have your baby and that bond's going to be instant, because I think that's still the message, in a lot of places, isn't it? But it doesn't always work out that way. So the next mum has said, my daughter's 4 weeks old and it's been really, really hard. Labour was traumatic and I don't have any kind of bond with her. Am I doing something wrong? I just never thought I'd be feeling this way. I just want the ride to stop. I just want to get off.
I'm really sorry to hear that, because again, it's down to that expectations and meeting your own expectations within that. First of all, in a short answer, the mother who has submitted that question is absolutely doing nothing wrong. This is bonding takes time, and a lack of bonding that's perceived by the mother isn't necessarily perceived by the baby, and that's really important. I think what would be helpful for this mother is to try and change that mindset of what's not going well to what is going well, and really try and notice that. And some really key good ways of being able to support that change in mindset, of that trying to notice what is going well, which then motivates that mother, is by getting someone, whether it's a partner, whether it's a friend, whether it's a health visitor, to take pictures and film interactions between the mother and baby. This is a proven successful method to support that mother's mental, emotional well-being, because from the mother's perspective, she's very much on the outside looking in on herself. And what we want her to do is see the experience that the baby's having, because I am sure that baby is feeling very loved and safe and cared for. But what we want to do is make sure that the mother feels that she's enough and it's horrendous. It can take a long time as well, but it will come. Other activities to think about would be classes like baby massage are really good for connecting with your baby. Baby sensory classes, they're low level, they're low key, they're not intrusive, and it's a facilitated way of being able to bond with your baby. So I would say to the mother, to give herself time, be patient, but also appreciate what she's doing well, because I'm sure there are so many things that are going well.
That's a really good point about how the baby perceives it. I'm not sure I'd even ever thought about that before, but actually what the baby's experience is not what the parents' experience is. And bonding isn't just about the mum, is it? I know that, you know, some new dads can feel that they haven't bonded, that kind of hasn't come for them either.
Absolutely. We noticed that so much. I think one of the main key bits of feedback that we get from fathers is they don't feel that they have a connection or a bond with their baby, maybe because that's the parents' feeding choices, that he has less time with that baby. It may not be. It may be that he feels a loss of identity. The dynamic of the family unit so dramatically changes when you have a baby, because suddenly the relationship is second to the family unit and putting that baby first. And that can be really difficult from a kind of mindset shift. And it does take time again, but again, we would really encourage other people, if there are networks and people around those families, to come in and notice those interactions and point them out and take photos. Often everyone else is kind of coming in asking for a selfie with the baby, but it's often the mother is left out of that, or the father. So it'd be great if there could be more kind of a common, like a common way of introducing the parents to be in the center of that attention.
And carrying on from that, and the kind of feelings of not feeling quite yourself, or not feeling as you maybe had hoped you'd feel after having your baby, I want to move on to a question about feeling low after having a child and sort of not being able to get to shake it really. This parent has said, "I'm feeling overwhelmed since I gave birth a few months ago. I've had days of feeling utter despair. I'm a confident person, but feel trapped physically and mentally. I feel in a spiral and I'm so low and lonely. I need support. What can I do?"
My heart just goes out to her, because I think this is so relatable. And she's very brave for sharing, first of all, her experiences and how she's feeling. Lots of parents, you know, mental health is talked about and is supported, and there is support out there, but so many parents are afraid of making that first step. So this is a really brave declaration to say, I need help, I know what's going on. So first of all, she's already made the first step in acknowledging what's going on, how she's feeling, how it doesn't feel right, and she's naming those emotions, which is brilliant, because all of them can be addressed. All of this is fixable. All of this is, there is room for improvement and change. There are kind of three aspects to this that I would suggest that she looks at. The first is around the emotional and social support side. So who is this person's network? If she doesn't have a network, that is also okay, because we can then look at other ways of creating a network within a safe community. But who else is in her network? Are there people that she can speak to about how she's feeling? Because lots of people may not know that she's feeling like this. She may have confided in some people, they may not have the right advice. So that first part of the social network, and finding someone, if you can just find one person who you trust to be able to confide in, to talk about how you're feeling, sometimes it can just make everything better, because you also don't know what everyone else has been through, from grandmother to young mother. They may have been through the same experience, which is relatable, which instantly makes a person feel more relieved. Secondly, charity like ours, Pandas, we offer peer-to-peer support. So for all of our services, we have 4 support services. They're all free. They have no waiting list. They're all confidential. We all have lived work or academic experience. So we've all been through or very close to a situation where we have mothers like this. I felt exactly the same, and most of my team did. And it's a desperately lonely place, because you feel like you don't quite fit that mold of happy, everything's going well, I've got a new baby, everything's great. And it's you can be in turmoil trying to balance the juggling act of what everyone wants you to be and feel to how you really are. So a charity like ours is a really welcoming place where we have volunteers that have that offer that peer support, that will listen, understand, and offer really sensible advice and support going forward. We also have some groups, and we have an online virtual group weekly, that parents can attend. And again, there's no pressure to speak. If someone wants to sit there with their camera off and mute, that's absolutely fine. But reaching out and just making those first few brave steps to just find one person in your network. If this doesn't improve, then it's probably a good idea to speak to your GP. And it depends how old the baby is as well, whether you're still connected with your health visitor or midwife, to get some further advice and support.
Thanks, Annie. Our next question is around a subject that I think a lot of parents will relate to, and that's sleep deprivation. I think we've all been there at some point in our parenting journey, and it can feel like absolute torture. This parent has said, I'm crying all the time, I feel ill from exhaustion, and I can't carry on doing what I'm doing. I'm never going to be able to cope on this little sleep. Have you got any tips for me? Because it's making me so low.
I'm so sorry that she's going through this. It's horrendous. And I think sleep deprivation is one of the worst things you can go through, because it doesn't just affect you physically, it affects you emotionally as well. This parent needs a break. And that is top line, bottom line, middle line, the crux of this. This parent needs a break. Whatever's going on with the routine, over time, there will be light in the tunnel. Sleep patterns develop, and over time, this baby will develop longer sleeping patterns, which will mean the mother has more rest. It's infuriating for parents to hear, oh, when the baby naps, you should nap as well, because as we all know, it's so difficult to shut down, and it's just not a realistic expectation. I think for this parent, this is about survival during this sleep deprivation, and I would urge her to accept any support that she trusts that she can straight away. And if there isn't any support, then she also needs to completely allow herself to do absolutely nothing, and that is okay, other than care for the baby. There's so much pressure on going out and doing different things and activities, and the pressure of the housework and everything like that. And really, none of that matters if your mental health is suffering because you're that exhausted. So it's really important that this mother takes the pressure off herself, accepts any support that she gets. There's an organisation called Home Start, who they have peer support workers who, I'm sure if she got in contact with them, they would give her some advice. I know that they offer practical support as well if there is no immediate network around her. But don't have any pressure on herself to perform or try and keep up with everything. The biggest thing is that she should allow herself to just have days where she does nothing other than care for the baby, because even though it's not an additional 2 hours sleep, it will in some way make a difference. But please know that over time, the sleep patterns will develop, and she will hopefully get some more sleep and in more of a routine.
And now to our final question, and it's something that I think a lot of parents will feel at different times, and it's around struggling and feelings of guilt. So this parent has said, my mental health has taken a dip and I can't help but think I'm doing things wrong. I doubt myself as a parent all the time. Annie, this is something that a lot of people are going to relate to.
I feel like this now, like occasionally. I have 2 children, balancing the needs of them and the house and myself and work. We have to be Wonder Woman all of the time. And there is a huge amount of pressure internally, socially, and it really is about looking at what's realistic and what is being achieved. Because like the bonding question that came in, this is about doubt, this is about the mum guilt that follows us around, and it's because we care. We want to be doing our best. We want to be providing the best start and future for our children. And it's so relatable. I think one of the things that we've noticed is that since COVID and pre-COVID, there is a huge network of parenting on social media, and comparison can be a dangerous habit. It's very important that this mother is following accounts and following advice and watching people that have a positive, empowering influence, not that are going to then bring out self-doubt, worry, comparison. Social media can be a wonderful tool, but it also can be highly detrimental to people's mental health when they see as what they perceive as the benchmark of a parent. It's really important that those accounts that are followed are ones that are going to support, because there are so many parents out there. The majority of parents, if they don't feel like this all the time, some of the time they do. And it's really important to reward the success of what this mother's been through. There will be things that are going well. There will be things that are in place. There will be things that bring her some joy. But if that persistent feeling of low mood and despair continues day after day after day, it's really important that she does speak to someone to get some support with that, because there's no concerns around the relationship between the mother and baby, but there is around that mother's mental health, and we want her to be okay. So I would suggest that, and I would suggest overall, and I would absolutely say that this will improve. It will improve in time, and there is support, but there's also the having to let go of the pressure that she sees from a social media perspective. Turn it off. If there's anything that she feels that is triggering her, get rid of it, and create a pathway and a life where you have those boundaries, where nothing is influencing you from a negative perspective.
Thanks, Annie, and thank you so much for all of the answers to those questions. It's so helpful, and there's some really good practical steps that people can take. So thank you very much for joining me today. If anybody is concerned about how they're feeling, or they would like some support, please do talk to your health visitor, your GP, or your community midwife if you're still in the system. And there's lots more information about mental health on babycentre.co.uk or on pandasfoundation.org.uk.